You think you're safe right now, sitting there, listening, breathing, normally. But the truth is, every terrifying case begins exactly like this. Ordinary moments, ordinary people, and a silence that hides something far darker. This story doesn't start with screams or police sirens. It starts with a calm that no one questioned. And that's what makes it unforgettable. It was a quiet town, the kind of place where nothing ever made headlines. People greeted each other with nods, doors were left unlocked, and time seemed to move slower than the rest of the world. That sense of safety was the town's biggest weakness, because when evil finally arrived, it wore a familiar face. The victim was known by everyone. Reliable, predictable, the type of person whose routine never changed. Every morning followed the same pattern. Every evening ended the same way. And when someone lives like that, it becomes easy for someone else to watch, to learn, to plan. For weeks, nothing seemed wrong. But later investigators would discover that the signs were always there. Small details people ignored because they trusted too easily. A car parked too long at the corner, a shadow that appeared in the same place night after night, a feeling of being watched that was brushed off as imagination. On the night everything changed, there was no struggle heard, no loud argument, no warning cry, just silence. The kind of silence that swallows sound and leaves behind questions. When the victim failed to show up the next morning, people assumed it was nothing serious. Maybe a personal day, maybe an emergency trip. No one imagined they were already too late. By the time authorities were alerted, hours had passed. And in true crime, hours are everything. What they found would haunt even the most experienced investigators. The scene wasn't chaotic. It was controlled, almost staged. That alone sent a chill through everyone involved. Because chaos suggests panic, but control suggests intention. There were no clear signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no shattered glass, which meant the victim either knew the person who came inside or trusted them enough to open the door. That realization shifted the entire investigation in a terrifying direction. Neighbors were questioned, friends were interviewed. Everyone said the same thing. Nothing seemed out of place. No enemies, no recent conflicts, no reason for something like this to happen. But that was the problem when there's no obvious motive. The truth is usually far darker than anyone expects. As investigators dug deeper, they began reconstructing the final hours. Phone records, camera footage from nearby streets, digital traces left behind without anyone realizing. Slowly, a timeline emerged, and it didn't match the story people thought they knew. Someone had been there before, more than once, watching, waiting, learning every habit, every weakness. This wasn't random violence. It was a calculated act, carried out by someone patient enough to wait for the perfect moment. What made the case even more disturbing was the lack of emotion at the scene. No rage, no mess, just precision. That told investigators one thing clearly: whoever did this had planned it long before that night. And they were confident they wouldn't get caught. Days turned into weeks. The town changed. Doors were locked now. People stopped smiling at strangers. Every unfamiliar sound felt suspicious. Fear doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it creeps in and settles quietly into daily life. Then came the first major break. A small detail, overlooked at first, suddenly became impossible to ignore. Something that didn't belong. Something that pointed not to an outsider, but to someone hiding in plain sight. The suspect wasn't what anyone expected. Not aggressive, not suspicious, not someone you'd cross the street to avoid. In fact, this person blended in so well that most people never noticed them at all, and that's what made it terrifying. When confronted, there was no immediate denial. No panic, just calm, too calm. The kind of calm that makes your skin crawl. Investigators realized they weren't dealing with an impulsive criminal. They were dealing with someone who believed they were smarter than everyone else. But believing you're untouchable is often what leads to mistakes. As pressure mounted, cracks began to form. Inconsistencies, small slips in the story, tiny details that didn't line up the way they should. And once those cracks appeared, the truth started pushing its way out. What investigators uncovered next would shock not just the town, but everyone who heard the case. Because the motive wasn't money, it wasn't jealousy, it wasn't revenge. It was something far more disturbing. The motive was control, not sudden control, not emotional control, but a slow, deliberate desire to dominate another human life without being noticed. The suspect didn't act out of anger. They acted out of curiosity, a need to see how far they could go without anyone realizing what they truly were. Investigators uncovered a hidden side that no one had seen before. Private notes, search histories, patterns that revealed a mind obsessed with power, planning, and secrecy. This wasn't about one moment. It was about proving something to themselves. What made the case even more chilling was how long it had been developing. The suspect had rehearsed this crime mentally again and again. They knew the layout. They knew the timing. They knew exactly how long they had before anyone would start asking questions. Every step was intentional, every movement calculated. And that level of preparation told investigators one terrifying truth. If this hadn't happened when it did, it would have happened later. Or worse, it could have happened again. During interrogation, the suspect spoke carefully, words chosen with precision, emotions kept behind a mask. There was no remorse, only justification, a belief that they were different, smarter, untouchable. But no one is invisible forever. Forensic evidence filled the gaps that words tried to hide. Traces left behind without realizing it. Digital footprints that told a story no one could erase. Slowly, the case transformed from mystery to reality. When the full picture was revealed, the town struggled to accept it. People replayed memories in their minds, searching for signs they had missed. Conversations that now felt unsettling, moments that suddenly carried new meaning. The idea that someone so ordinary could be capable of something so horrifying shattered the illusion of safety. It forced everyone to confront an uncomfortable truth. Danger doesn't always look dangerous. The trial drew attention far beyond the town. People couldn't understand how such a controlled, emotionless crime could come from someone who seemed so normal. Experts analyzed every detail, trying to explain the psychology behind it. But some questions had no satisfying answers, because not every terrifying case ends with understanding. Some end with silence. The victim became more than a name. They became a reminder of how fragile routine really is, how quickly life can change without warning, and how important it is to notice the small things we often ignore. In the end, justice was served, but peace never fully returned. The town learned to live with what happened, but it never forgot. Some lights stayed on at night, some habits changed forever, and some people never looked at their neighbors the same way again. This case leaves us with a chilling lesson. Monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they sit beside us, talk to us, and blend into our lives so perfectly that we never see them coming. And that's what makes this case truly terrifying, because it doesn't end when the story is over. It ends when you realize it could happen anywhere.